everyone online and on the phone. Welcome to our week 6 of Interview Bootcamp. And today we have a special guest, Ms. Linda Nelson. I'll let her introduce herself shortly. We have quite a bit to talk about today, and take a look at the content. Today's subject, we're going to talk about how to explain goals and aspiration in an interview. And Linda will be my guest and judge to help us analyze certain questions and the answers provided. And then she's going to bring up a very interesting concept of phrasal verbs, and something that's particularly challenging for those that are non-native English speakers. I just also want to mention that we have a live audience in the group today, and you're not going to see their faces, but you guys are welcome to ask any questions that you might have for myself or for Linda. Okay, so without further ado, Linda, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Heather. Thanks for having me. Nice meeting you all. I'm a speech language pathologist by trade. I have been involved with many non-native folks throughout my life, helping a refugee family. My husband and I do build houses in the Dominican Republic. We just have always been involved with an international, intercultural family, and our family is growing. I told Heather, my daughter-in-law, soon-to-be daughter-in-law, is Chinese as well. So I saw a need for non-native English speakers to speak with a little bit more clarity and confidence, not to take away their cultural identity, but to speak with an American intonation pattern and speech characteristics that actually help Americans and English speakers understand that accented speech. And so while accent reduction, accent modification is a part of being a speech therapist, I just started working with clients to really help them be understood, and that's the name of my company. I absolutely love helping professionals and highly educated people just get ahead, and again, not be perfect, because no one's perfect, but really help them. And we have a way in which we can do that. And we work with people all the time and from all over the world.
What a wonderful concept and a wonderful thing that you do. And I think for a lot of our students, Linda has done a few workshops for us, and she's going to come back and do another webinar for us in a couple of days. But I think a lot of our international students feel like, I don't speak English well. That's actually not true.
Oh, they speak very well.
They speak very well, and it's just certain ways of speaking, whether it's intonation or just, the phrases used. There's a little bit of gap between what we think English is spoken to what native speakers are speaking.
Absolutely, and we try to bridge that gap in a functional way, something that really makes sense to you in your work environment and in your life, rather than in a real technical book kind of way.
So we're going to go over a couple of interview questions today. Now, I'm thinking there could be phrasal verbs that pop up. So I'm just kind of like...
Would you like me to give an introduction of
phrasal
phrasal verbs?
Would you? Yeah. So let me go down to the slide a little bit.
Sure. Getting I'm not sure how many of you know Jack here at ChampAmerica, but I actually used him as a little bit of an example here. He's getting embarrassed. So a phrasal verb, also what I want to preface this by saying is my company and my goal is not to be all about grammar and learn more rules. That is like so far from what I want for my clients. And your clients, I want them to be functional and confident speakers. But phrasal verbs just seem to be a little bit of a thing that gets in the way. So what it is actually, it's when you put a verb with a preposition, and they're usually 2 to 3 words, and thus the name phrasal verb, okay, because it's not just a verb in isolation. You have 2 or 3 words. And if a non-native speaker doesn't understand the phrasal verb, they're going to look at the phrasal verb, they're going to try to translate each of the words individually, And when they translate each of the words individually, it doesn't make sense. And so it's one of those things that actually helps you sound more fluent in native English speaking, but can cause problems. So here's a really easy example. If I say, Jack stepped up the ladder, if I said that, okay, Jack stepped up the ladder. This actually is not on the PowerPoint, but I do have all of these examples to explain. But I wanted to explain the difference between a prepositional phrase. Again, we don't go into too much grammar, but when you hear Jack stepped up the ladder, you can visualize stepping up a ladder, right? Everybody can see that. But if we say, Jack stepped up his game, stepped up is actually a phrasal verb. And what does that mean? Now, some of you might know it, some of you might use that term, but Jack stepped up his game means he increased his effort. Does that make sense? So if you stepping up his game, if you take those words and split them up, it makes no sense. And so phrasal verbs are a stumbling block for a lot of non-native English speaking people. It's also something that there are so many of them. I would never imply that you should learn them all, but I do think that you should listen for them and get used to integrating them in your speech and language, and then increase them a little bit at a time. So another real quick one, just to differentiate it, is we ran out the door. If Heather and I, if we were here and the fire alarms are going off, we ran out the door. Everybody understands that. We ran out the door, okay? But if we said we ran out of soap, and you're non-native English speaking, ran out is actually a phrasal verb. And many of us know that running out of soap means there's none left. So now here's the interesting thing I feel about phrasal verbs is you can say it a different way and be totally understood. And the goal of my program, and my goal, actually my mission of my career, is for people to be understood. So you can actually say, I ran, or we have no more soap left. And someone on the other side is going to understand what you mean, okay? But when you get into the point of saying we ran out of soap, you're sounding more fluent, more natural, more English verbiage. Okay, is that making sense? So it works both ways. If someone says to you, we ran out of soap, and you don't understand it, that's, oh my gosh, okay, what does this mean? You can write it down and you can look it up, all right? But the communication is both ways. So if you just say to the person, does that mean, or ask for clarification, what does that mean? And it's, okay, there's no more soap left in the restroom, please, bring some soap in. So it just really is something you have to listen for. And the couple of examples that are on the your slide deck, looking forward to is a really, really big one. There's so many different ways to use it, but many of you probably do use them or have learned to use them. But if you say, I'm looking forward to the weekend, okay, so we all kind of know what that means, yeah? Raise hands, all right. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Now, looking, if you're non-native English speaking, looking, viewing, and then forward, going forward, right? It doesn't maybe make sense. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. But you will probably have most of your clients write that in a letter when they're doing a follow-up letter on an interview. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, right? So that would be a very natural way of writing it. So that's where I think that we can complement ChampAmerica and help get it sounding more fluent and native. I look forward to getting the job, right? Another way of saying it is, I hope to get the job. I wish I get the job. Okay, so you're not being misunderstood if you say, I hope to get the job. And no one's going to criticize you for not saying, I'm looking forward to getting the job. But that, I look forward to getting the job, that's a very, very natural phrasal verb.
So I feel like a lot of our international students, they hear bits and pieces.
Okay.
So sometimes they'll say, I'm very eager to get the job, which is perfectly fine.
Very, very nice.
But sometimes they'll say, I look forward of having the shout, for example.
Right.
Okay, because they kind of heard something about this look forward, but what's that middle thing?
Right.
So that's always the part that's missing. So I think it's really helpful, even for me. I guess I'm as close to a native speaker
Absolutely.
as I get. There are moments I stumble and I'm thinking, is it on, off?
Right.
So those are
Yep.
the moments that I often get tripped up as well. But I guess I find other ways to patch it and move forward. So for our students, it's important to raise the awareness.
Absolutely. And what we teach is learn to listen. We want, and it sounds so simple that it sounds elementary, and most people that we're dealing with here and that you're dealing with are so highly educated and advanced that's like, learn to listen. Oh my gosh, you sound like you're talking to a kindergartner, but it's not, it's true. I actually gave that advice to someone here in this room today, to learn to listen to someone who they like their speech, and then emulate that or try to sound like that person.
Or
so
even accumulate information over time.
Exactly.
It doesn't happen
Pick and
overnight.
choose people who you like the way they phrase something, whatever, and then just kind of integrate that into your speech. Do we have time to go through some more?
Sure.
Okay, great. So take off. This one is really fun for me because it's most of us know that the plane took off. Okay, and again, when we use phrasal verbs, let me just say, you can use different tenses of the word. So if I say, we're talking about take, the word take off, take after, take in, those are phrasal verbs. Okay, you can use different forms, took, past tense and such. Okay, so again, we don't want to get into the grammar of it. We're more getting into the concept of what do these words break down into and how do these words sound to the non-native English speaker. I actually try to coach businesses also to not use these that often if they have a very large non-native English speaking employee, because they're not communicating either. So two-way communication is important. But if you say the plane took off, most of us know that the plane has left its starting point. But the word take itself means to reach for and hold, right? I am taking Heather's glass. So I take her glass. But so to take off, what does that mean to a non-native English speaker who's not fluent and not been around a lot of this American conversational speech? Let's go with another one. With her career is taking off. Okay, if you just look at the word taking, which was, again, to reach and hold, and off, what's off? Turn the light off, right? Taking off, it might not make sense, but it's very, very common in your business here, especially when you hear someone is doing very well at work, that their career is taking off. So she keeps getting promoted at her job, she's excelling, she's doing well. So again, you might be using these already without realizing that they're called phrasal verbs. And remember the word, a verb is a verb, but a phrasal verb is 2 to 3 words put together that make it have a different meaning. Okay, is this pretty clear to everybody so far?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So take in is another one of the take. So we use the word take off, but I did a few other takes. So take in. So if you say he was taken in by the man's kindness, that is actually not a good thing. Okay, if someone was taken in by someone's kindness, they're usually means that they seem kind, but they're not truthful. So taken in, again, take in, what does that mean? Okay, so it's just another way of saying, oh my gosh, I don't understand this word. One more take explanation is take after. If you say she takes after her mother, and again, take and after, 2 words separately don't mean she takes after her. It doesn't mean the same thing as the phrasal verb. The phrasal verb take after her mother means she is similar to her mother. Now, again, if you say, as a non-native English speaker, she is similar to her mother, it's perfectly acceptable. But if someone says to you, she takes after her mother, and you don't know what that means, then you're having a breakdown in communication. Another phrasal verb, that is a problem.
I don't think I knew what taken in by someone's kindness means.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
the first time.
If you've said,
That's
if you're taken in by someone's kindness, it's the person on the street theoretically or possibly that comes and asks you for money.
Mhm.
Okay, I used to carry a granola bar in my pocketbook, so when someone said that they were hungry, I could give them a granola bar
Mhm.
because no one wants to not feed someone who's hungry. But sometimes if you're taken in by someone's kindness, they're so nice, they're sweet, and they go, oh, I need a few dollars for the bus, for this. You might be taken in by their kindness and might give them a few dollars, and then they might run off and do something that you wouldn't want to be done with your money. But I bet no one in this room would not buy someone a bagel or a piece of fruit if someone was truly hungry. So just to show you that there are lots of words when you put them together in 2 and 3 word phrases, usually the verb plus a preposition, possibly an adverb. And again, I use functional language, so this is why I'm trying to teach you to listen for these different things. Do we have time for another one?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So the word, I think we wrote broke down. Broke down is really interesting because I actually looked this up, and the word break or to broke actually has 11 phrasal verbs. So 11 different ways you can put the verb break and a preposition and create a completely different word. So so the word broke typically means something is broken. Okay, so I'm using the word, okay, so if I break my pen or break a stick, I'm making one piece two. That's what we understand as break. Or the brakes on a car, but another word for broke is I have no money. And a lot of the students probably are sitting there going, I knew what that meant. But there are different ways of defining the word broke and break as a verb by itself. But if you say broke down, now this is going to be important to your clients, because if someone says the negotiations broke down, all right, now if you just take the 2 words, broke, something broke, and down, what does that mean? Well, the negotiations were unsuccessful. And that might be something you'll come into contact with quite often in the fields, especially that you're all working in. But and so that might be familiar to you, but it really means the negotiations, were unsuccessful. And if you said that, again, perfectly fine, but it's more common to say the negotiations broke down. He broke down in tears. He started crying. But again, if you take the 2 words broke and down, it doesn't sound like it should mean someone's crying. But if you said he started crying, people would understand you. So there's the difference between communication and misunderstanding and miscommunications. The train broke down this morning. If you said the train had a mechanical problem and stopped, everybody would understand you, but you might not understand it if someone came to you and said, the train broke down this morning. And you might think, was broke down? I don't get it.
I always hear my students say, oh, the train broke.
Okay.
That down is
I would say
Yeah.
broke down. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Also in business settings, sometimes even I would say, let's break this down to 5 different segments, right?
And exactly. And while I said there's 11 of these, I only came up with a few broke examples. The next one I came up with was broke off. She broke off the relationship after 3 years together. Okay, people might know that, but broke and off individually don't mean the same thing as they are no longer dating. Broke up, similar thing. You could say the similar thing about the dating or in a relationship, but I used an example of the land was broken up into smaller lots. And how can land be broken, right? Think about that. I mean, if you're a non-native English speaker, you got to think literally. You probably know better grammar than I do. Because you learned it and you learned everything and the rules of grammar. But I've been a native English speaker since I was born. So when you say the land was broken up into smaller lots, it means the land was subdivided into smaller lots. Again, just if you come across these words. Another one, break away. I gave an example, the alternative investment team broke away to start their own firm. And you would understand that because you're probably part of that alternative investment team, but it really means team left company A to start their own company. But again, break away, what does that mean? Break away. So these are phrasal verbs. How are we doing on time? Good?
Good. So maybe we go back and look at some interview examples.
Perfect.
And tell us if you see any of the things you want to highlight or
Okay.
if we're using anything wrong, because
Okay.
these are all from real examples.
Perfect. Thank you.
So let's go up. So today we're going to talk about long-term and short-term goals. Am I going up or down? Okay.
That was up.
Oh. Even more interesting. Okay, so a lot of times when you're in an interview, employers will ask you, okay, Allison, what's your long-term and short-term goals? What are they trying to figure out by asking you that question? I think they're trying to see your drive, your motivation, and also they want to know whether the job you're looking for is aligned with what the company is trying to do, whether you're a good fit. Right? So it could test your long-term and short-term goals, and it also could be an opportunity to evaluate the character, your ability to strategically plan your life. It really is a loaded question that tests a lot of different aspects. So similarly, every week we always try to tweak the question, right? Because it doesn't always come out straight as, a long-term, short-term goal. It could be, what do you plan to do after college? Right? What are you trying to achieve in the upcoming year, or maybe 6 months from now? What do you want to do in the next 5 years? Some people could say even longer, 10 to 15 years. And to me, that's a very, very long time horizon.
Yes.
What's your end goal in your career? That's a very long-term goal, right?
Because they often change.
Exactly. But don't be surprised if that question come up. And how you organize your answer is key to whether that question makes sense. What are your career goals? And in here, I'd say that's both short and long term. If you can clarify with your interviewer, great. If your interviewer says, doesn't matter, just tell me, then you should be specific, short term, long term. I think that's a much more organized way of answering. So short term goals, example for yourself could be getting into a new industry, right? You're just graduating from college. I want to be in the biotech industry. I want to be in legal, right? Gaining experience in leadership, right? I'm looking forward to an opportunity to manage projects, working globally with people in cross-functional teams, right? Improve that communication skills, and very importantly, develop technical skills. For those of you that are just leaving school, right, you might have learned a lot, but to apply those skills in work, that requires a little bit of training and adjustment. So it's good to say, develop technical skills through my everyday job, right? Build a professional network, I think is very important, also overlooked. But I think professional network helps you learn or develop better, and also give you some ideas in terms of how to manage and expand your or develop your career further. So for long-term goals, there should be a consistency, right? If you're saying my short-term goal is entering the biotech industry or finance industry, you don't want to be 5 years later, I want to do something totally different. That just shows a lack of thought process and consistency. Commitment to the company, and also very important that we just said, don't flip-flop. Right? If you want to do something, stick to it, right? Make sure that people see the determination. So the don't, and this is very true when we ask short and long-term goals, and I did hear people giving me personal goals. There is a section that we can talk about personal goals, and today we're going to go over some of that as well. But if it's a professional purpose, let's stick to professional, right? Don't talk about working for another company in the future. I honestly want to tell you guys I made this mistake in my first job interview. And the interview god must have been looking down on me that day. And somehow that just got overlooked. And I'll tell you the exact thing I did. I was interviewing for Deloitte on a super day. And so you actually go into 4 rooms. The interview was 4 partner level people. So everything else good. My last one was a partner. So he said, what do you want to do in the future? I said, in the short term, I want to develop. I want to become a manager. I want to learn this and do that. And in the long term, I said, I want to be the CFO of a multinational company. So if today's me were looking at myself from that 10 years ago, be like, oh my God, you are a disaster, right? Get out of here. Somehow that partner, I guess, could be, he's just a very easygoing person. Later I learned. And also, I think that probably is just something very common in the Big Four industry. People do leave and go down that CFO path. And also, I probably was very, very lucky. He overlooked that mistake. But guys, it's never a good idea to try to deviate too much, especially saying, I want to take this skills I learned from you and go do something else, or even go to graduate school. I think you should be careful, right? Nobody wants to invest time and money to train someone, and 2 years later, off you go to an MBA and go on to work for McKinsey, right? So just learn from my mistake, and don't do what I did. Okay, so let's take a look at a real example here. What's your career goal? And this is one of our students' real example. We think it's nicely written. As an aspiring physician, my short-term goal is to go in research about neurodegeneration disease, such as Parkinson and Alzheimer's disease. During my gap year, I hope to publish or co-author an academic paper in preparation for medical school application. My long-term goal is to become a clinical pathologist who studies the pathology of different diseases. So NYU Langone Clinical Research Department is a perfect match for my entrance into the medical research field. Langone is my #1 choice because it is such a world-renowned medical research facility. I want to expand my career globally because these are diseases that affect large populations around the world and that has no cure. Through this position, I hope to learn more about immunological responses and innate immunity through in vivo scientific research. Clear, we need a lot more medical knowledge. But I thought, what do you think, Linda? I thought it was very clearly written, short and long-term goal. You hear the distinct progression.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did read these before and I agreed with your comments. So I don't want to seem like I didn't give it any thought, but it was clear and detailed and well thought out. And I actually was thinking, if that person was sitting across the room from me, wow, he's got some really, or she's got some really great goals. And this is an area that definitely needs science and research on. And you know what? I might put my money on him. Right. That's an idiom. I might put my money on him. Would not be talk about that later.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I really liked it.
And he is sitting across from you as well. So
we can put money on him.
Congratulations. Good job.
Very nice.
So it is one of the answers that shows how meticulous this person is, right? With strategic goals and everything made sense. So I would say it's a mature candidate, right? That put a lot of thought into someone's career.
Very good.
All right.
Nice job.
So good job. And what do you plan to do after college? Another very good example. After college, my short-term goal is to break in the finance industry. I studied biology in school because I was interested in science classes, and I was part of the STEM Society. I often give presentations on microbiology, immunology to researchers and professors from other universities. Since I majored in biology, I have little experience with the finance field. However, my knowledge make me a good candidate for your companies, as I would be able to help with the investment or equity research of biotech companies, something I know that your firm specializes in. I want to do a job that I enjoy, which is analyzing the biotech industry, identify companies with great products and investment potentials. I have a strong desire to work hard as I can make up for my lack of experience. From there, my future goal is to use the experience I learned to improve and become a portfolio manager for biotech sector. I want to grow through hard work and added responsibility to expand my skills.
Again, I read these and I loved your comment as far as a very smart pivot, because I started reading it and I said, okay, it's biology and he wants finance. But I thought it brought it all together very, very nicely and very naturally. So I agree with your comments on a very smart pivot. And Heather and I have not prepared this conversation before. But I did read it and I thought, oh my gosh, it's really good. And I've seen this firsthand. I had a son who's suffered with getting his first job and foothold into finance and law, etc. So I like the way you said it was a very smart pivot, because I'm looking at it and saying, where did these two things fit together? So again, I thought it was nicely written.
You guys, there will be a lot of you that are either going to be career switchers, or no one goes into school knowing what you'll come out to do, right? So likely, using this person as an example, you're a biology major, but you saw an opportunity in finance, or you change your heart, right? You don't want to go in the research route anymore. I want to be in finance, and for various reasons that we all understand, right? So it's okay to do that. But the important thing is, think about your goal and make sure if you're going to pivot, there's a natural, very reasonable explanation for why you're going to do this.
And then you would think too, as far as in the finance and investment sector, biotech is huge. So that could really get someone excited if they are in finance and say, wow, we have someone who understands the technology side of it, of the biology and technology side of it. So it would actually help them make their investments and make stronger investments. So again, I love the way you wrote very smart pivot, and it was a good pivot.
So I also thought an interesting answer, right? That's the thing. I want to become a portfolio manager for the biotech sector, right? And it's a general enough ambition. Mm-hmm. It didn't say I want to be a portfolio manager for your company, right? Because everybody understands for people in this generation, it's very unlikely that you stick with one company for the rest of your life. But your goal, if you were to say, I want to be with your company for the rest of my life, that almost seems disingenuous.
It does.
Right? But if you say, I want to progress on this trajectory, and I think that's very reasonable as well.
Yep. Very good.
Is there any phrasal verbs that you see that you want to?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I was listening to this really smart person pivoting and trying to think how I can.
But we can do that for the next example.
Absolutely.
But if you see anything,
I will.
Right? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I think that's a interesting example as well. And there's a little something else I want to stress on this. I am currently a junior majoring in computer science with previous experience of working at Spotify as a developer intern, using Java and Python to debug apps. My short-term goal is to join Google Summer Cold with the second program and gain international developing experience under a mentor. Google Summer Cold will give me a new exposure to software development while giving me the opportunity to give back to the community. My long-term goal is to secure a full-time position at Google as a full-stack developer. Google is the leading company when it comes to innovation in technology. I want to be part of this mission to help myself and the company develop in a creative way. Not only is Google the leader of technological change, it guides social change and public opinion among people too. And I want to see the work I do creating an impact on people's life on a daily basis.
I think it was very natural sounding. If I'm looking at phrasal verbs, I'm not picking them out independently, but it's not choppy. It's not choppy. It's not choppy. It's very natural and flowing. So all the English phrases and the terms and the sentences I'm looking at, it seemed like I would not think that this person is coming from a non-native English speaking background, because it wasn't per the book. It wasn't just, it was very, very fluid and fluent.
Yeah, so all our answers, most of them are from international students, but we do help them polish the answer.
Perfect.
Right? And this is where, you know, if you were, like I always say, if you're an international student, for the first time you're going to an interview, you're thinking about your story, you're trying to organize the language.
Right.
You're dead.
You're right.
You're not going to be able to really connect and deliver a strong
And this is
performance,
very, again, we didn't prepare this, but this is very connected. It sounds fluid. It sounds fluent. If you said it to me, I would think you're as it is or very similar. I would think that you're very, very confident with your American English. Yes.
And the other thing is, remember we talked about earlier, when you talk about your personal goal, try to connect that with the company. And I think this person did it very well here. Why he or she wants to work for Google. And both the creative component, the giving back to the community or creating social change, right? The person's smart to mention a lot of the key things that Google, at least on the mission statement, is trying to accomplish. And I think they're doing a great job, right?
Absolutely.
So in a couple of weeks from now, we are going to talk about cultural fit, but I think we can have a preview of an example of aligning your personal goals to a company culture.
Very nice.
Okay, so now employers might ask for your personal goal as well. Now, personal goals should be more about yourself, right? There's a fit assessment, right? And there's also a component of interviewer wanting to know, are you an interesting person? And this is in banking, we always ask this question because I would be sitting with that new hire 12, 14 hours a day. I will see you more than I see my own family. So I don't want to work with a robot. And it is very true. That's the thought process behind this question. So couple of things, you can have categories, right? It can be attitude, right? I want to constantly grow and learn. That's a positive attitude. Community service, right? Give back, right? And use my spare time to be mentors, or financially, I want to achieve financial independence rather than I want to make X amount of dollars, right? Leisure, that's always where we love to hear. We ask about those things on your resume. I want to snowboard, I want to learn cooking, I want to travel, and that tells you a little bit about the person, right? Let's use this one. This is an interesting example. My personal goal is to learn Japanese. I come from a multicultural household where many of my relatives of mine speak Japanese. I love the language and the culture and want to be able to communicate with my family relatives. More importantly, I think it's an amazing opportunity to grow professionally and culturally with a different society and culture. Since I am an international business major, I believe modern language such as Japanese is pivotal to the development of my career. Not only does this benefit my personal interests, it also helped me with my career growth as well. So general, but I think it's a very good goal that makes sense.
Yep, and he brought his personal goals into his career goals and work goals, and also learning Japanese can't be easy. So, if this person is looking to learn Japanese, they're probably a high achiever right there. And so I would rate that very well too, and very fluent and fluid.
And this person is a high achiever.
Yes. Are they here in the room as well?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, so there's a personal goal. My personal goal is to make enough money to start my own company later on. I want to start a company similar to yours. This is why I want to work here, gain the experience, learning the structure and functions of your company. I think this is a great opportunity to learn how to build my own entrepreneur spirit.
I think it's a little weak.
Yeah, and it's also sort of like my example of I want to steal your stuff and, and take that for myself.
I think generally you want those personal goals to be larger and broader. I mean, obviously, we're not all naturally born to be philanthropic and all, but we all want to better people around us, I think. And if you use that in your personal goal, that would help a lot, not just to make enough money to start my own company. That's what maybe my sons might tell me, but that's not in an interview or
Right.
in a business setting.
Right.
They're like, I want to start a company. Okay, yeah, okay. So, but yeah, in an interview, no. I'm finding it a little thin, I would say. And I hope my non-native speakers understand when I say a little thin, it means a little bit lacking detail. So a little thin.
So I also had sort of the turn off kind of example. People telling me they're interviewed for private equity firm. I want to learn, gain experience, and learn how it works. And I come from a family of investors. So 5 years from now, I'm going to do my own thing, right? You might very well be down that trajectory, but I think that's not something I would recommend saying in an interview.
Yeah. I hope this person isn't in the room.
Not today.
Okay.
But there's I truly hear a lot of these examples, right? Just think through who your audience, who that person you're speaking to is, right? What do they want from you? They want to invest in someone that can help out for the next 5 years or maybe even longer. So, along that trajectory, and see how you structure your answer. Okay, I think we are good with this week in terms of personal goal and professional goals. Next week, guys, we are going to talk about another type of question where interviewer asks you, what's your style in terms of not your style, your dress style, but your learning style, your leadership style, what's your work style, right? Those are questions some people say, what do you mean, my work style? Right. So that could mean, do you work alone? Do you work better with people? Or leadership style? Do you lead by example? Or are you more of a, someone that has to meticulously plan out everything, right? So next week, we're going to talk in depth about that. But Linda, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
By.
I really enjoyed meeting you all, and nice job.
Phrasal verbs.
Phrasal verbs.
From this point on, pay attention. It doesn't come overnight.
It doesn't come overnight. Do not get a book on phrasal verbs and try to learn them all, okay? That is not your highest and best use right now. You're all working towards great careers and great accomplishments in school and beyond, but be aware that they exist and they will make you sound like a more fluent speaker. Just a real quick, somebody says, if you want to sound, and this is kind of a joke, but you'll understand it. If you want to sound like an American speaker, substitute all your T's, your T sounds, with a D. I'll give you an example that everybody says. Instead of water bottle, say water bottle, right? Water bottle. That's how we say it, water bottle. I'm not asking you for that, because what you want to hear, you want to be understood, and you want to communicate and have great communication. So that really was a little bit about a joke, but the phrasal verbs are not a joke. They they do occur, and they will make you sound more fluent, more intelligible, and more intelligent around the people that you're with. So, just pick up on them, note to self, and then try to use them. Try to use them even in different places like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or wherever you're going. Just use them and then be aware of it. And then using them, they will grow. Your list will grow.
Give me that water bottle.
Yeah, water bottle.
Great.
Thank you
everyone today, and we'll see you next week.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.